Well, this morning's reading, which uses the excuse me, Aleister Crowley deck, Thoth deck, looks at, I think, an experience we all share in common. And the major arcana that was drawn to conclude the reading, I think, just supports that conclusion. We may find ourselves worrying about things. Often we do, honestly. And I think a lot of that comes from the mind. The swords being the dominant suit of the mind, of the intellect. And in more typical representations of the Three of Swords, we know that they don't usually just convene at some point, but we often see them piercing through a heart, most commonly, and other things. Sometimes a person, but they usually represent some sort of pain. And I think Aleister Crowley aptly named this card when he chose to associate it with the word sorrow. We can overthink things. We can think ourselves into a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow. And not to distract too much from the topic at hand, tarot, but if we look at Hermetic philosophy briefly, we can consult the Kybalion, probably the most well-known Western introductory text to Hermetic philosophy. And in this book, we see reality broken down into 7 principles, one of which was mentalism. Now, regardless of whether we want to acknowledge or fully embrace the idea that reality has been composed of information, which implies an informer or creator being, without getting into all that, if we can agree on the mental structure of reality, then we have to admit that our mental exercises, perceptions, and so on can and do have an effect not only on ourselves inside, but on the external world, or what we perceive as the external world. And look at that surrounding. Look at that background, and all the kind of turmoil and anguish and discomfort that was depicted there. So a lot of times we'll find, and I consider this a very important lesson, a lot of times we'll find that our growth and our development have been prefaced by some sort of sorrow, and oftentimes we'll find that that sorrow has been self-imposed. So we should probably get a handle on that. Of course, moving from that, if we accept and understand the power of our mental exercises or constructs, behaviors, then we can open the door to moving into something a bit more productive. Although difficult, usually, it can result in some very beautiful gain for us individually, and hopefully for those that we care about, that we want to support. But we have to remember that this doesn't just happen. We have to make a concentrated, focused effort to achieve this. I'd also like to draw attention, just real quick, to a couple of things in this card. The greens, those represent growth. And growth, as we know, often comes with a little pain or discomfort. So we shouldn't give up. When we feel maybe a little disoriented, or wonder if this has been working, or would it just make more sense to give up? No. And we know that because another prominent color in this card, purple or violet, in tarot often signifies wisdom. We know better because we've already learned from our past that the only way to gain and to progress involves willfully moving forward. We have to do that ourselves. We can't depend on someone else to do it for us. We can get some encouragement. We can get insight. We can gain from the wisdom of other people. Maybe I don't have to make certain mistakes. I don't have to get hit by a bus to know that I probably don't want to get hit by a bus. Other people have done that, and I've seen the results, and I don't like those results. So I can forego the experience. And the same applies to a lot of other, maybe less obvious things in life. Now, if we keep going on this trajectory, well, then we arrive at the princess. The princess, number 2 of the major arcana, the trumps, the clear representations of the collective unconsciousness. And she often gets depicted with a book. We don't see a book here, but we do see her up and ready to move around. Now, I think of 2s in tarot as very gestatively inclined. I think of them as meaning not necessarily ready to move in great strides, but still taking information in, kind of like the seed that's been watered, that's begun to grow and expand underground, but hasn't quite broken through and into more rapid and exponential growth. Something that someone in this phase does well to remember: we may feel that we don't have all the information we need to move forward, that maybe it would make more sense to hold on for a minute and wait for things to happen. But sometimes we forget, I think oftentimes we forget, that we have a great abundance of things already at our disposal that we can draw on. You know, I get in my car and I have to drive from Salt Lake to Michigan. Do I have everything I need to get there in one shot? No. I'll have to stop and get gas. I'll probably have to stop and get some food. I may need to stop and, rest, acquire some rest as I proceed in the journey. But I have what I need to get started, and I have what I need to progress to those checkpoints. And so do we in life. We have experience already that we can draw on, right? We don't have to repeat certain circumstances or situations. We've already done that, right? And we've already gotten some really good things out of that. So I think we do well to remember that. And that helps us not to give up, but it also helps us to simply get started. I've got what I need to get started and to acquire what I need at the next checkpoint. We may not always know how this will work out, but we can have confidence that just as negative thinking and expectations can act like a self-fulfilling prophecy, we can have the same experience conversely. We can feed mentally our progress, and our accomplishment, our finishing of the journey, depends on that.